My name's Theo Farrell. I'm Professor of War Studies at King's College London. My ESRC research is on the British military campaign in Afghanistan, and particularly in Helmand province in southern Afghanistan. The British have been in Afghanistan for 10 years now. Britain has spent over £11 billion, and Britain has lost over 380 service personnel in Afghanistan. And so really, it's about time we have a very close look at the campaign, see what lessons can be learned.
Counterinsurgency, which is the big theme in Afghanistan, isn't simply a case of putting forces onto the ground and expecting them to behave as soldiers behave and do soldierly things. It's far more complicated than that. It's politics, there's social factors, cultural factors, a wide range of political aspirations, all of which have to be melded together. And so it's important when we look at any particular military operation that we take all those strands, human, political, cultural, economic, developmental, media, informational, all these aspects, and then see what the research tells us.
I've been able to look at the whole campaign and get access to internal documentation. I've interviewed extensively officials and officers, and then I've gone in on the ground doing field work in Kabul, in southern Afghanistan and in Helmand itself to really get a sense of the campaign and how it's going. My research has informed the work of the House of Commons Foreign Affairs Committee and the Defence Committee in their inquiries into the operations in Afghanistan.
The research has helped us in two ways. The first is it captured the essence of what went on in some of the most complicated, most sophisticated operations we've seen. It drew on personal experiences, it drew on official records, and it helped create a formal start point for further analysis and for further development. And the social sciences and the humanities aspect of this was as important as the geometrics of battlefield planning and design. As a result of research like this, we'll be better prepared for the next conflict, wherever it might be.
We're just going to start now. You shouldn't feel any pain at all. But if you do, just let us know and we can stop at any time.
My name's Margaret Cox, and this is the Hactel Lab, which is in the Dental Institute in Guy's Hospital, which is part of King's College London. The equipment that you see behind us here, and what it does is it acts as a virtual dental workstation. You could say it's a virtual patient for dentists, although it's probably a very well-behaved patient.
You put on these virtual reality glasses, that tracks your head movement when you're preparing the tooth to mimic essentially what it would be like to drill a tooth on a real patient. You've then got a virtual reality handpiece which tracks where the handpiece is in relation to you drilling the tooth on a patient with a cavity.
Upstairs there are 77 real dental workstations which cost £45,000 each. And these ones were designed so that the students could try out things over and over again. These students have got to be safe to practice in about 18 months' time. Dentists do make mistakes. They can drill too far into your tooth. They can remove too much healthy teeth, even after years of training. Here, it tells them in the very first year how much healthy tooth they've removed, how much decayed material they've removed, so they can get a much higher level of perfection in their first year.
When you do your first filling on your first patient, it does make you very, very aware of what you're looking for and what you want in a good cavity preparation and filling.
Through doing this in dentistry, we've developed ways that can be translated into other disciplines like medicine, like physics. People who've been stroke victims, for example, you could change this device so that people could learn to write again using the same sort of approach. One of the things that it doesn't do is it doesn't feel pain, although some of the dentists would like us to incorporate in the graphics blood pouring out of the mouth if they drill too deeply, for example. You could do that, but we haven't actually done that yet.
I'm Hannah Jenkins. I'm a research associate at the Brass Centre based at Cardiff University. I started researching corporate social responsibility mainly from an environmental angle. The problem was that corporate social responsibility was thought of as something that large companies do. Small businesses are traditionally represented as non-entrepreneurial in the area of corporate social responsibility. They're represented as being not engaged in the agenda, and that perhaps a lot of small businesses think that corporate social responsibility is something that doesn't apply to them. ACCA, the global accounting body, came to us at BRAS because they recognised that there was a need for small and medium-sized enterprises to have a guide to show them how to actually put corporate social responsibility into practice in their businesses.
The real value of this research is to make practical and real some of the principles of corporate social responsibility and to turn those into opportunities for small businesses. And increasingly, as society becomes more ethically aware and we see the rise of the ethical consumer, that's something that can create competitive advantage.
The ABC of CSR for SMEs is an online guide. Any small business, no matter where they are on the journey, can pick this guide up and start to learn about how to actually put CSR into practice in their companies, how it can benefit them as a company and the society in general.
For the last 3 years, we've actually been involved quite heavily in the Business in the Community Give and Gain Day project. The whole company closes down for a day and we actually go to whatever project we're doing that year. So 2011 was a local school just down the road, and we actually built a mini beast area, and we used it as a team building exercise as well, and also kind of a development tool. We had one of our employees who actually project managed the day. This research actually puts CSR in perspective, really. It's not useful just to kind of put on your website as a badge, effectively. It's actually helped us win new clients. It's improved our reputation, our credibility, because we're involved in all of these different projects. There's lots of benefits that a CSR policy can provide, and this research really helps identify those and how to make the most of it.
My name's Angie Hart, I work at the University of Brighton. We put together something that we've called Resilient Therapy. This is basically a toolkit for parents, practitioners and young people to use. We've plundered the academic evidence base for all the research on what supports young people to do better than you'd think they would do, given their circumstances. All these social scientific articles and books that we've trawled through and that we put together with our practice experience in one A4 sheet, and they can use that as a framework to really think about what they might do to make what we call a resilient move in a young person's life. Karen is a parent of 3 young people with special needs. She's been involved in our Resilient Therapy community of practice for years now, and she's training other parents in the approach herself.
What's really great with the book that's been done for parents is that it's full of lots of easy to use practical strategies. I work with about an average of 6 different parents each week, and you really start to see results quite quickly.
Lisa is a young person with lots of experience of mental health services. She's written a book for parents on the Resilient Therapy approach. We've supported her to do that, and she's done it with her other young people with similar experiences to her.
When I first started working on the book with the university, I was in quite a bad place. I was self-harming quite a lot, and I was severely depressed. And I wasn't too sure about resilient therapy, but slowly as we worked with the university, I realised that it was quite appropriate and it was something that I'd already been doing, and I realised that I was actually quite resilient as a person.
I think the resilient therapy work really is bringing out what young people, many young people, the resources they've got inside them anyway. They've just got a bit buried, and by having exposure to the framework, having a bit of space to reflect, they can think themselves about the kind of resilient moves they might make, and parents and practitioners supporting them can do the same.
I'm Dr. Joanne Tippett, a lecturer in spatial planning at the University of Manchester in the School of Environment and Development. And my research is about sustainable living, and in particular how people can work together to imagine and plan for a better future in their areas, their companies, their towns, their neighbourhoods, and their organisations. My first job was in Southern Africa. I was working with villagers in the rural areas of Southern Africa, and I needed a better way to understand what mattered to people and to help communicate together. This led to the first prototype of Ketso, strips of paper, movable ways of working. And I took these ideas and started to test them in North Manchester to look at transforming this derelict, polluted, industrial wastelands into a different future. As I took this hands-on approach that I'd been developing Southern Africa and started to really develop it into a hands-on toolkit, a way that people could actually write their ideas down, build up a picture and start to see a group picture developing together. And what's really exciting about this is the local people came up with a plan that was really doable, and the enthusiasm that this generated actually meant that that site went from the bottom of the list to the first to get £1.7 million worth of funding and is now transformed into a country park.
We've used Ketso ourselves for project planning, timetabling projects, even developing websites, things like that. Anything where you really have a range of ideas that you want to throw together in a visual sense and then organise and make sense of, it's great for.
Since we launched as a social enterprise in 2009, Ketso has been used in a huge range of contexts, from community planning and local engagement, through to health and well-being, to the future of learning in the civil service. In Rwanda, Ketso is being used with teenage boys, orphans. So my vision for this is that it can help us worldwide to imagine a better future.
My name is Sue Peaty from Cardiff University, and my area of expertise is social marketing, which is about behaviour change. And this project is about antisocial behaviour in the South Wales Valleys communities. In this case, the social problem was the issue of deliberate grass fires that cost the South Wales Fire and Rescue Service £7 million a year. What we discovered when we were doing our research was that deliberate grass fires had actually become a social norm. It was something that had been going on for generations and generations. We took a social marketing approach that applies the same techniques that you would use in commercial marketing, but to a social issue. So this involves actually really understanding your target audience and stepping in their shoes and understanding how their lives are and what are the barriers and benefits to behaving the way they do.
There are a number of elements to the social marketing project that I've never come across before. That included providing some high-profile patrols in those hotspot areas. And when we first started to do this, young children would point at us with 2 fingers and so on. But by the end of the project, we were on first-name terms as we'd stop in the street and engage with young people and start to try and educate them through the diversionary activities that we had running about the problems that the grass fires cause us. What it felt like to be a firefighter when they went on Firefight for a Day experiences. We took them on bushcraft events so they got to appreciate the forestry as a place to enjoy and play in rather than a place to destroy by fire.
We set ourselves a target of reducing grass fires by 15%. What we actually managed to do was to reduce them by 46%. We also found there was a drop in other forms of antisocial behaviour that we weren't expecting.
All arson across South Wales amounts to something like £38 million a year. Thanks to the project, we've now been able to change some hearts and minds, and we saw a reduction in those fires, but it's also saved us all money, which we all desperately need.
My name's Alison Liebling. I'm a Professor of Criminology and Criminal Justice, and my area is prisons research. And what we've been doing over a number of years in particular is trying to develop a survey that measures aspects of prison life that are almost unmeasurable. They're things that prisoners tell us are the most important aspects of their quality of life in prison, and they include things like staff-prisoner relationships, humanity, fairness and order. And we found that developing this survey from the ground up with the help of prisoners has made it work in a way that was quite unexpected. And so we've been able to use it to explain things like differences in suicide rates in prison, levels of order, and so on. The prison service have found it really useful as a supplement to their official performance measures.
People who are going to have a chance of changing their lives around generally need to feel that they're valued, that they have got a purpose, that they've got people who believe in them and that they can actually become different people. They're unlikely to do that if a prison is operating in a way that makes them feel undervalued, poorly treated, dehumanised.
The survey consists of a number of statements. We ask prisoners to agree or disagree with these statements, and they're things like, I feel safe from other prisoners in this prison, or this prison is well organised. And so by responding to a large number of these sorts of statements, we get a very clear sense of what that prison is like.
You only have to look at the first page of the report to know everything you need to know about that prison. Is it performing well? Is it performing poorly? What are its strengths and weaknesses? So we can see whether prisons are improving, deteriorating. We know whether they're in the public or the private sector. So it's a sort of place to start when trying to disentangle some of the interesting analytic puzzles about a prison.
It's very important for us, this survey. It came about because the Prison Service had spent some time trying to improve compliance and process, get procedures working well, but measuring whether or not a prison is supporting individuals, helping them to change, dealing with them decently, humanely, is much more difficult. It was this research that enabled us to get underneath that, and we use it to make prisons more decent, humane, so they might actually help offenders to change their lives.
I'm Masuda Bano. I am a research fellow at the Oxford Department of International Development. My research in the last 7 to 8 years has been a lot about madrasas, Islamic school. A madrasa is a school for Islamic learning, and it historically goes back all the way to 8th century. In contemporary modern Muslim societies, madrasas continue to teach Islamic subjects primarily. The puzzle we find in northern Nigeria, which is a largely Muslim community, is that the access that girls have to modern education is severely limited. And my research shows that one of the primary reasons for that is that in that community, the assumption is that a good future for a girl lies in being a good wife. You know, a marriage is the best future prospect, a good marriage. Then the connected belief is that a woman who has good Islamic education is going to be a good mother, good sister, and a good daughter. So it's that ideal role they're looking for.
In most religious schools, they don't get any basic literacy or numeracy. For many girls, prospects of adulthood are pretty limited. They get married early, they have children, and they go out very little.
However, at the same time, my research showed very clearly that the parents are not against modern education. What they see a modern government school do is entirely provide modern education which makes the girl forget the religious values. So what they wanted was an ideal combination. And once you provide them that ideal combination, modern education, but with strong tones of Islamic education, they go for that. And that's what we are finding with the program that I helped design with DFID in the last 4 years.
The research has really helped because education gives them opportunities for a slightly broader view of life and greater opportunities to earn a living.
While this research definitely benefits Nigeria, it equally benefits the UK and the Western world because we live in a context today where there's an increased polarization and lack of understanding between the Muslim and the Western societies, and programs like these are the best bridges that one can build between the two sides.